The coffee shop smelled of cinnamon and desperation. Ethan Calloway sat in the corner booth, screwdriver in hand. Laptop open beside him. Mrs. Brennan had flagged him down 2 hours ago. Something's wrong with the register system again. Could he take a look? He'd agreed because Christmas Eve in Seattle meant empty apartments and the kind of silence that made a man think too much about what he'd lost. Sophie was with Vanessa until tomorrow afternoon. The custody agreement dictated every holiday down to the hour. Christmas Eve with Mom. Christmas morning with Dad at 10 a.m. sharp. 3 years of this choreography and Ethan still felt the wrongness every time. The register fix had taken 15 minutes loose cable basic troubleshooting. But he'd stayed nursing his third cup of house blend, because home meant staring at Sophie's empty room and remembering how Vanessa's voice had sounded when she'd said it. "You're a good man, Ethan. You're just not enough." The words hung in the air like poison, not his words, someone else's. A man at the booth near the window speaking loud enough that half the room could hear. Ethan looked up and saw them, a woman in her 40s, elegant in the way that came from commanding rooms, sitting across from a younger man whose attention was clearly elsewhere. The man glanced at his phone for the 4th time in as many minutes. The woman's shoulders were rigid in a way Ethan recognized. He'd worn that same posture 3 years ago when Vanessa had told him she needed more. The man set his phone down with exaggerated care. His voice carried across the cafe with casual cruelty. "You run some kind of company? My buddy makes apps, pulls in 7 figures. Real money." The woman's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Ethan's hand tightened around his screwdriver. 6'1", 190 pounds of muscle built from hauling server equipment, and he felt his body coil with instinct. The man continued, oblivious or uncaring. "You're 46. Successful men my age date women in their 30s, younger usually." He paused, and the pause was worse than any word. "You're too old to be exciting, but too young to have given up. It's kind of sad, honestly." The coffee shop didn't fall silent. That only happened in movies. The espresso machine kept hissing. Christmas music played from mounted speakers. But Ethan watched the woman go very still. She pressed her hands flat against the table. Her breathing was careful, controlled. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just sat there, absorbing cruelty with practiced stillness. The man stood, pulled on his designer coat. "No hard feelings, right? Just being honest. You seem nice. Maybe try those apps for older women." He dropped a 20 on the table and walked out into the snow. Ethan sat frozen, watching the woman's hands shake against the wood. He recognized that shake. He'd seen it in his own hands the morning Vanessa had packed boxes while 7-year-old Sophie ate cereal, too young to understand her world was splitting apart. His phone buzzed. Frank Mitchell, his mentor at work. "You good for Christmas, brother?" Ethan typed back. "I'm good." He wasn't good. He was 42, sitting in a coffee shop on Christmas Eve because his apartment felt too empty and his daughter was with his ex-wife and her soon-to-be husband James, who made $350,000 a year and owned a house with 5 bedrooms. The woman was still sitting in her booth. Ethan made a decision that felt both inevitable and terrifying. He closed his laptop and stood. His legs moved before his brain could catalog reasons this was terrible. She was clearly successful, polished out of his league. She didn't need some IT guy with a savior complex. But he couldn't walk past her. He stopped beside her booth. Her eyes lifted to meet his, and for a second he saw, past the careful control, to something raw underneath. Exhaustion, resignation, the particular loneliness of being told repeatedly that you were the problem. His voice came out quieter than intended. "I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but that guy was loud enough half the cafe heard." She tensed, defensive walls slamming into place. "I'm fine." The words should have been his cue to leave, but Ethan had spent 3 years learning to read the space between what people said and what they meant. "That was really cruel, what he said to you." She laughed, sharp and bitter. When enough people say the same thing, eventually it becomes true. The words hit Ethan like a physical blow. He'd heard their echo 3 years ago from his own mouth. His voice was quiet. A lie repeated 1,000 times doesn't become truth. It just becomes a lie people are too tired to fight. The woman stared at him, really looked at him for the first time. He watched her take in his worn jeans flannel shirt, calloused hands. Watched her catalog him, but then her expression shifted, softened maybe, or just cracked around the edges. Who are you, Ethan Calloway? IT security, single dad to a 7-year-old girl who's currently with her mom for the holiday. He wasn't sure why he'd added that last part, maybe to establish he wasn't hitting on her. Diana Mercer, CEO of Mercer Analytics, divorced 8 years, currently wishing I'd stayed home tonight. The name clicked. Mercer Analytics data visualization for healthcare systems contracts with major hospital networks. This woman ran a company employing hundreds of people, and some asshole had just told her she was too old to matter. Your mother set that up. The date Diana's laugh was hollow. 3 times a week she calls, different men each time. Always the same speech about being more accommodating, less focused on work. Tonight's disaster was Trevor something. Works in finance, drives a Tesla. Thinks empathy is weakness. Ethan pulled out the chair across from her. May I? She hesitated, then gestured to the empty seat. Why not? Might as well have one decent conversation tonight. He sat immediately, feeling out of place. Diana Mercer wore success-like armor, expensive clothes, subtle jewelry, the presence that came from making decisions affecting people's livelihoods. He was an IT guy who'd spent the evening fixing registers for free coffee. But he was also a man who'd been told he wasn't enough, and he recognized the look in her eyes. I have a daughter. Sophie. She just turned 7. Diana's expression softened fractionally. That's a wonderful age. It is. She's obsessed with space right now. Wants to be an astronaut or maybe study black holes. Possibly both, she hasn't decided. Diana almost smiled. Ambitious. I like her already. She drives me crazy with questions. Every dinner. Why does Jupiter have the great red spot? How do black holes work? Is there life on Europa? I've checked out every astronomy book our library has. The conversation found its rhythm. Diana asked about Sophie's school, her interests. Ethan answered honestly, felt himself relaxing into the familiar comfort of talking about his daughter. The one part of his life he'd gotten completely right. What do you do in IT security? Ethan leaned forward slightly. I protect networks for a mid-sized firm. About 500 employees, mostly preventing hackers and keeping data safe. That sounds complex. It can be. Last week we had a ransomware attempt. Someone sent a phishing email to our CEO, made it look like it came from our accounting firm, demanded immediate wire transfer. I caught it because the domain name was off by 1 letter. Diana's interest sharpened. You train your staff constantly. Most breaches happen because someone clicks wrong. So I run quarterly training how to spot fake domains, suspicious language, unusual requests. Prevention's cheaper than recovery. He could see her mind working. For a moment they weren't a failed blind date and a good Samaritan. They were 2 professionals who understood problem solving. You manage 5 people. Ethan nodded. Small team. We're efficient. I have 240 employees. Contracts with Fortune 500 companies. 12 years building Mercer Analytics from nothing. The gap between them yawned wider. Ethan felt it, the difference between managing 5 people and leading hundreds, between earning $85,000 and probably 10 times that. But Diana wasn't saying it to make him feel small. She was saying it because tonight, despite everything she'd built, some stranger had decided she was worthless because she was 46 and single. That's incredible, what you've built. Diana's smile was sad. My ex-husband didn't think so. He wanted me to quit after we got married. Said work was getting in the way of family. Family meaning the children I couldn't give him. The words dropped like stones. Ethan felt them land heavy and sharp. He left because of that. He left because I was her. Voice went flat, incomplete. That's the word he used. An incomplete woman who couldn't fulfill the basic function of giving him children. Ethan's hands curled into fists under the table. Jesus Christ. He's remarried now. Has 2 kids. They send Christmas cards every year with professional photos. He looks very happy. I'm sorry. There aren't words for how wrong that is. Diana shrugged, the gesture too casual. It was 8 years ago. I'm over it. She wasn't over it, but Ethan understood the lie because he'd told the same one about Vanessa. My ex-wife left me 3 years ago. Said I was a good guy, but she needed something more. Someone more. She's engaged now to a man who owns his own firm, makes $350,000 a year. Sophie adores him. The admission hurt more than expected. He rarely talked about this. Does that bother you? That your daughter likes him every single day? Because part of me knows it's good for her, but another part hates it. Hates that James can afford things I can't. Hates that he's there for moments I miss. Hates that Sophie comes home talking about the telescope he bought her, the museum membership, the Kennedy Space Center trip he's planning. Diana's expression was understanding. You think you're not enough for her? It wasn't a question. Ethan looked down at his hands. Sometimes, yeah. Vanessa left because I couldn't give her the life she wanted. What if Sophie grows up and realizes the same thing? They sat in shared silence, 2 people who'd been weighed and found wanting. Mrs. Brennan called last call from behind the counter. Diana glanced at her watch, surprise crossing her face. It's after 11. I've kept you here for hours. You haven't kept me anywhere. I'm exactly where I want to be. The words came out more intense than intended. He saw Diana register them, saw something flicker in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear, or both. She gathered her coat. I should go. Thank you for this, for staying, for listening, for not being Trevor. Can I walk you to your car just to make sure you get there safely? Diana's smile was small but genuine. That would be nice. They pulled on winter gear and stepped outside. Seattle had transformed. Snow fell in thick curtains, coating streets in fresh white. That would be gray slush by morning, but right now looked almost magical. Diana's car was parked 3 blocks away. They walked slowly, neither eager to end this unexpected evening. Their breath made clouds in frozen air. Diana's heels clicked against pavement, occasionally slipping on ice. Ethan found himself adjusting his pace, ready to catch her if she stumbled. Why did you come over to my table, really? The question stopped Ethan mid-step. He considered lying, giving some easy answer. But Diana had been honest about her ex-husband, her mother's calls, the particular pain of being told she was incomplete. I saw the way you went still. After he said those things, like you'd learned exactly how to absorb cruelty without breaking, where anyone could see, his voice dropped. I recognized that look. I wore it 3 years ago when Vanessa told me she was leaving. That practiced stillness, like if you hold yourself together hard enough, you can survive anything. Diana stopped walking, turned to face him under a streetlight that turned falling snow into something beautiful and temporary. And you didn't want me to survive it alone. No, I didn't. They stood there in the snow, 2 people who'd been broken by different hands but in similar ways. Diana's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm tired, Ethan. So tired of being told I'm too old, too broken, too late. That I missed my window. That I should accept whatever scraps come my way. Ethan felt something crack in his chest. I'm tired too. Tired of being the good guy who wasn't good enough. Tired of going home to silence and wondering if I'll ever be more than someone's almost. The words hung between them, honest and raw. Diana looked up at him. What do we do about it? Ethan didn't have an answer. He'd spent 3 years learning to survive loneliness, not escape it. But standing in the snow with Diana Mercer, who understood exactly what it felt like. To be told you'd expired before your time, he felt something shift. Maybe we start small. One day at a time. Maybe we just don't say goodbye yet. Diana studied his face for a long moment. Then slowly, carefully, she nodded. One day at a time. They reached her car, a hybrid parked under a streetlight. Diana pulled her keys from her purse, fumbled them slightly. Nerves or cold, Ethan couldn't tell. He opened the driver's door. "Thank you. For tonight. For everything. Thank you for letting me interrupt your terrible evening." Diana climbed in, started the engine. Warm air blasted from vents. She looked up at Ethan through the open door, something vulnerable in her expression. "I'll probably regret this in the morning. Decide it was just holiday loneliness. So will I. But right now, I'm glad I said something." She nodded, pulled the door closed. Ethan stepped back, watched her check mirrors adjust the heat. Her taillights disappeared into white. He stood there until she was gone, then walked back toward Morrison's where his car was parked. Snow was falling harder now, turning Seattle quiet and strange. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. "This is Diana. Thank you again for tonight. Drive safely." Ethan stared at the message. When had they exchanged numbers? She must have gotten it from another text. "Mrs. Brennan gave me your number. I hope that's not too forward." "Not too forward. I'm glad you have it." Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Would you want to get coffee tomorrow? Or is that too fast?" His thumbs moved before his brain could catalog reasons. This was complicated. "I'd like that. Sophie's with her mom until afternoon, so morning works. 10 a.m., same place." "Perfect." Ethan pocketed his phone and stood in the snow for another moment, letting himself feel something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Not quite hope, that was too dangerous, but maybe its quieter cousin. Possibility. Then he remembered Diana sitting in that booth, absorbing Trevor's cruelty, her admission that she was tired of being told she was too old, too broken, too late. He turned and walked back past Morrison's until he found what he was looking for. The flower shop was small, tucked between a dry cleaner and a Thai restaurant. Through the window he could see Margaret inside, counting the register, preparing to close. Ethan knocked on the glass. Margaret looked up, surprised. She came to the door, unlocked it, poked her head out. "Ethan, what are you doing here? I need a flower." "Just one. Something simple but meaningful." Margaret's eyes crinkled with understanding. She stepped back, held the door open. "Come in then. Quick." The shop smelled like earth and green things. Margaret moved among buckets with practiced efficiency. "White rose." Ethan nodded. "That's perfect." She selected one carefully, wrapped it in simple brown paper, tied it with twine. The rose was perfect in its simplicity. "How much?" Margaret waved him off. "Consider it a Christmas gift." Ethan paid, despite her protests, $30 he didn't really have to spare, and stepped back into the snow. He pulled out his phone. "Don't go to sleep yet. I have something for you." 3 dots. Then I'm still in my driveway. Too scared to go inside to the silence. His chest tightened. "Stay there. 5 minutes." He drove through empty streets, snow falling harder. Seattle transformed into something ghostly and beautiful. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind raced. This was insane. He barely knew this woman. What was he doing? But then he remembered her practiced stillness, the words incomplete and too old and too late, and he knew exactly why he was doing this. Her house was in Queen Anne, a craftsman with a wide porch and lights glowing warm through windows. Her car sat in the driveway, engine running, exhaust making clouds. Ethan parked behind her and got out. The white rose looked almost luminous in the streetlight. Diana climbed out of her car, confusion and hope crossing her face. "Ethan." He crossed the distance between them. "I couldn't let you go home without this. You said you're tired of being told you're too old, too broken, too late. I wanted you to have something that says the opposite. Something that says you're exactly right, exactly enough, exactly on time." He held out the rose. Diana stared at it like she couldn't quite believe it was real. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and took it. Her hands were shaking. When she looked up, tears were streaming down her face. "Why did you do this?" "Because you deserve it. Because everyone deserves to be reminded they're valued, and because I needed to remind myself it's okay to try, to hope, to believe that maybe we're not too late after all." Diana laughed through her tears, the sound half sob, half wonder. This is the nicest thing anyone's done for me in years. Then people have been failing you, and I'm sorry for that. They stood in her driveway, snow falling around them, two broken people holding onto a single white rose and the fragile possibility that maybe they could help each other remember what it felt like to hope. Thank you for seeing me, for staying, for this. Thank you for letting me. She held the rose carefully as she walked to her door. Ethan waited in the cold until she was inside, until lights came on in what he assumed was her living room. Only then did he return to his car. His phone buzzed. I'm putting it in a vase where I'll see it every morning. Thank you for reminding me I'm allowed to hope. Sleep well, Ethan, he typed. I'm glad I was there tonight. Sweet dreams, Diana. The drive home was quiet. Ethan's apartment building loomed dark against the night sky. He climbed stairs to the second floor, unlocked his door, stepped into silence. Sophie's toys scattered across the living room, Legos and books and the star chart she'd been working on. Her shoes by the door. The apartment smelled like yesterday's pancakes. But tonight, underneath the loneliness, something else stirred. Something that felt dangerously like hope. He fell asleep on the couch, phone on his chest, and for the first time in 3 years, he didn't dream about everything he'd lost. He dreamed about possibility. Diana Mercer fell asleep in her quiet house with a white rose on her bedside table and hope settling warm in her chest. Hope that maybe she wasn't too old, too broken, too late. Hope that maybe kindness still existed. Hope that maybe she'd been seen by exactly the right person at exactly the right time. Morning came too bright. Ethan woke on his couch, neck stiff, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Pale December sunlight streamed through windows. He sat up slowly, reality reasserting itself. Last night felt like something imagined, but his phone showed their text exchange, proof that some of it had been real. The apartment was cold. Ethan got up, adjusted the thermostat, started coffee. He stood at the kitchen window, looking out at Seattle blanketed in snow. Christmas morning. His daughter was waking up in a different house, and he had 4 hours until he could pick her up. His phone rang. His mother. He let it ring twice before answering. Morning, Mom. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Are you doing okay? I'm fine. Picking her up at 10. His mother's voice carried sympathy mixed with judgment. Well, maybe next year Vanessa will be more flexible. Have you thought about Mom? I really need to go. Coffee's burning. The coffee wasn't burning, but Ethan couldn't handle his mother's suggestions that always boiled down to if he'd been a better husband. Maybe Vanessa wouldn't have left. He hung up, felt guilty, sent a text. Sorry, rough morning, love you. His phone buzzed. Not his mother. Diana. Good morning. How are you today? Ethan stared at the message, trying to calibrate his response. Finally, he just typed the truth. Honestly, I just hung up on my mother for the first time in my life. Having a breakdown/breakthrough on my couch. Her response came quickly. I'm familiar with the feeling. I hung up on mine yesterday, still processing. He smiled despite himself. We're a pair of rebels. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I don't want to impose, but if you want company before you pick up Sophie, I make decent coffee and could use the distraction. No pressure. Ethan's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. This was fast. Too fast, probably. Every rational part cataloged reasons to decline, but the rest of him, the part that had bought a white rose at 11:30 on Christmas Eve, the part that recognized a kindred spirit, the part that was so tired of being careful and alone, typed, I'd like that. Give me 45 minutes. Diana sent her address. See you soon. Ethan showered quickly, changed into clean jeans and his best flannel shirt. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, trying to see himself through Diana's eyes. 6'1", brown hair going gray at the temples, blue-gray eyes. Not ugly, but nothing special. Just a regular guy pushing 43. What was he doing? His phone buzzed. Diana, if you're having second thoughts, I understand. But I really do make good coffee. And I promise not to psychoanalyze your entire life before 9 a.m. Ethan laughed out loud. On my way. The drive took 30 minutes through snow-slowed traffic. By the time he pulled up to Diana's house, his nerves were singing. Diana opened the door before he reached the porch. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no armor. Just a woman who'd also slept poorly and woken up wondering if last night had been real. Hi. Her smile was tentative. Come in, it's freezing. The house was warm and smelled like fresh coffee and something baking. Diana led him through a living room that was comfortable rather than perfect, books everywhere, comfortable furniture, framed travel photos. On the kitchen counter in a simple glass vase sat the white rose. You kept it. Of course I kept it. It's the nicest gift I've gotten in 8 years. They sat at her kitchen island, mugs of excellent coffee between them. Morning light streamed through windows overlooking a small backyard, where snow had transformed everything pristine. So, Diana wrapped her hands around her mug. We survived our first impulse decisions. How do you feel? Terrified? Hopeful? Confused about why a successful CEO is making me coffee on Christmas morning? Because I woke up and checked to make sure the rose was still real. Because I haven't felt this hopeful in 8 years. Because you're the first person in a very long time who's looked at me and seen someone worth fighting for. Her honesty was disarming. Ethan found himself matching it. Vanessa left me because I couldn't give her the life she wanted. Big house, fancy vacations, social status. I'm an IT guy who rents a 2-bedroom and drives a 10-year-old Subaru. What if you wake up in a month and realize the same thing? Diana set her coffee down. Ethan, I spent 8 years being told I was incomplete because I couldn't have children. I'm not going to do that to you. You don't know me well enough to make that promise. No, but I know cruelty when I see it. And I know the difference between someone who's not enough and someone who's been told they're not enough until they believed it. She leaned forward. You show up for your daughter every day. You work hard, you're kind. You bought a stranger a flower at midnight because she needed to feel valued. That's not enough. That's everything. Ethan felt something break open in his chest. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in again. Me neither, but maybe we figure it out together. One day at a time, remember? They sat in Diana's kitchen as morning became late. Morning talking about everything and nothing. She told him about building Mercer Analytics from scratch, the satisfaction of solving impossible problems. He told her about Sophie's obsession with Europa, about teaching her basic Python, about the telescope James had bought that made Ethan's stomach twist. Your phone alarm went off 3 times. Diana's voice was gentle. Ethan checked the time and swore. I need to pick up Sophie in 20 minutes. Go. Diana stood. But Ethan, would you want to get together again? You and Sophie, if that's not too fast. Ethan stared at her. You want to meet my daughter? I want to meet the person who's clearly the most important thing in your life. The offer was terrifying and perfect. Ethan thought about all the reasons to say no. But he thought about Sophie asking why Daddy looked so sad all the time, about how his daughter had spent 3 years watching him survive instead of live. Sophie comes home this afternoon, but tomorrow maybe you could come over. We usually make pancakes and work on whatever project she's obsessed with. Diana's smile was radiant. I'd love that. Ethan drove to Vanessa's house, a split level in Bellevue with a 2-car garage and a yard 3 times the size of his apartment, with his mind still in Diana's kitchen. He was 10 minutes late. Vanessa stood on the porch, arms crossed, clearly irritated. Sophie saw his car and came running, blonde hair flying, pink jacket unzipped despite the cold. She hit him at full speed and he caught her, lifted her, breathed in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. Daddy, I missed you so much. I missed you too, baby. Merry Christmas. Over Sophie's head, Ethan met Vanessa's eyes. His ex-wife looked tired and beautiful and familiar in ways that didn't hurt as much as they used to. She's exhausted. Too much sugar, too late to bed. It's Christmas. Little bit of spoiling won't kill her. Vanessa's expression shifted. You look different. Did you meet someone? The question was too sharp, too interested. Ethan felt old defensive instincts rising, but those instincts were from a different version of himself. Yeah, I met someone. It's new. We'll see what happens. Vanessa studied his face. Well, good for you. She didn't sound like she meant it, but that wasn't Ethan's problem anymore. Sophie chattered the entire drive home exactly as predicted. James got her a telescope. Had he mentioned the telescope? It was amazing, Daddy. You could see Jupiter and 4 of its moons. And James's parents gave her science books and they played board games until midnight. Ethan listened, made appropriate sounds of amazement, tried not to think about how James's presence made his own gifts look pathetic. But Sophie was also telling him about missing their pancake tradition, about how Christmas morning had felt wrong without waking up in her own bed. By the time they got home, Sophie was flagging. Ethan made grilled cheese and let her curl up on the couch with her new books. His phone buzzed. Diana. Hope Sophie's homecoming went well. No pressure, but I'm actually free tonight if you wanted to do tomorrow today instead. I make a mean hot chocolate. Ethan looked at his daughter buried in a book about exoplanets and made another impulsive decision. Sophie. You know how I said I met someone new? Sophie looked up, instantly alert. A girlfriend, maybe. Too soon to know. But she's nice and she'd like to meet you. Would you be okay with her coming over tonight? Sophie considered with Supreme Court gravity. What's her name, Diana? She runs a big company that helps hospitals. Is she smart? Very smart. Does she like space? I don't know. But I bet she'd love to hear about your telescope. Sophie thought for another moment. Okay, she can come over. But Daddy, if she's mean to you like Mommy sometimes was, I'll tell her to leave. Ethan's throat tightened. Deal, baby. He texted Diana. Sophie says yes. Come over whenever. Fair warning, you'll get detailed reports on Jupiter's moons. Diana arrived 90 minutes later carrying a bag from the fancy grocery store and looking nervous. She'd changed into dark jeans and a cream sweater, clearly wanting to make a good impression. Sophie met them at the door, assessing Diana with brutal 7-year-old honesty. You're pretty. Thank you. You must be Sophie. Your dad's told me how brilliant you are. I'm not brilliant yet. I'm still learning. But Daddy says I ask good questions, the best questions. Diana crouched to Sophie's level. I brought supplies for hot chocolate. The fancy kind with real chocolate. Is that okay? Sophie's eyes lit up. Can I help make it? I was hoping you would. Ethan watched them move into his kitchen. Sophie chattering about proper heating techniques, Diana listening with genuine interest. Something in his chest loosened. They made hot chocolate together, a messy process that involved Sophie insisting on measuring everything twice, measure, twice cut once, just like Daddy taught her, and Diana gamely following instructions. The result was thick and rich and probably too sweet, but they all drank it at Ethan's small dining table while Sophie launched into her lecture on Europa. It has an ice shell 60 to 90 miles thick, but underneath there's liquid water, more water than all of Earth's oceans. And it stays liquid because of tidal heating from Jupiter's gravity. That's fascinating. Diana's interest was genuine. So there could be life there, maybe? The ocean might have hydrothermal vents like Earth's. That's where some scientists think life started, so maybe it started the same way on Europa. Ethan watched them, his daughter and this woman he barely knew, and felt something he'd thought he'd lost forever. The sense that maybe his family could expand again. Diana stayed for 2 hours. She helped Sophie with her art project, a model of the Jupiter system made from styrofoam balls. She asked smart questions, treated Sophie like a colleague rather than a child. And when Sophie finally started yawning, Diana took her cue. I should go. Let you two get to bed. Can Diana come back? Sophie looked between her father and their guest. She's nice and she knows about tidal heating. Diana laughed. I'd love to come back if your dad says it's okay. Sophie immediately turned to Ethan. It's okay, right, Daddy? Yeah, baby, it's more than okay. At the door after Sophie had given Diana an unprompted hug and run off to brush her teeth, Ethan and Diana stood in the threshold. "Thank you." Diana's voice was quiet. "For trusting me with her. Thank you for seeing her. Really seeing her. I do like you." Diana stepped closer. "But I also really like Sophie. She's exactly as brilliant as you said. She asked if you'd come back tomorrow." "I'd like that." Diana paused. "Actually, I'd like to be part of this. Whatever this is, you and Sophie and making hot chocolate and learning about Europa. I know it's fast, it's terrifying," Ethan admitted. "I spent 3 years building walls. You're asking me to tear them down after 2 days. I know. I'm asking the same thing of myself." They stood in his doorway, two people who'd been broken and were choosing to try again. One day at a time. One day at a time. She left into the cold December night, and Ethan closed the door feeling lighter than he had in years. Sophie was waiting in her bedroom, already in pajamas. "Is Diana your girlfriend now?" Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. "Maybe someday. We're taking it slow. I like her, Daddy. She's nice." And she didn't pretend to be interested in space. She actually was interested. "I like her too, baby." Sophie snuggled deeper into her blankets. "Are you going to be happy again like before Mommy left?" The question hit Ethan like a physical blow. He hadn't realized Sophie remembered him being happy before. "I'm working on it, sweetheart. Diana makes me feel like maybe I can be. Good, because you deserve to be happy, Daddy. You're the best dad in the whole world." Ethan kissed her forehead, turned out her light, stood in her doorway watching her fall asleep. He was cleaning up the kitchen when his phone rang. "Vanessa." Ethan almost didn't answer, but old habits were hard to break. "Vanessa." His ex-wife's voice was tight. "We need to talk. Can you come by tomorrow? Tomorrow's my day with Sophie." "What's this about?" A pause that went on too long. "James got offered a position in Denver, senior VP, big salary increase." Ethan's blood went cold. Denver as in Colorado, 800 miles away. "It's an incredible opportunity for us." The words "our future" hit Ethan like a slap. "What does this have to do with me?" Vanessa's voice went careful. "We'd want to take Sophie with us. Obviously, you'd still see her summer's holidays, no?" The word came out harder than intended. "Absolutely not. Ethan, you're not being reasonable. I'm being a father. A father who's not going to let you move my daughter 800 miles away so your boyfriend can get a promotion. He's my fiancé, and this isn't just about the job. Sophie has a great school here, a great neighborhood, a father who's here every single day. You're not thinking about what's best for her. What's best for her is having both parents actively in her life." Vanessa's voice hardened. "I was hoping we could discuss this like adults. But if you're going to be difficult, I'll have my lawyer file paperwork. You do that, and I'll fight it every step of the way." He hung up before she could respond, hands shaking with rage and terror. Denver, 800 miles. Sophie living in a different state, calling James home while Ethan became the weekend parent. His phone buzzed. "Diana." "Everything okay?" Ethan stared at the message. He'd known this woman for 48 hours. He had no right to dump his custody nightmare on her. But Diana had said she wanted to be part of this. He typed, "Vanessa just called. She and James want to move to Denver. They want to take Sophie." Diana's response was immediate. "That's not happening. We won't let it happen." The "we" in that sentence made Ethan's chest tighten. "I don't know what to do." "Then you get a lawyer, and you fight." 3 dots appeared. "And you let me help. I'm good at building cases, analyzing data." "Put me to work." Ethan sat on his couch, phone in hand, and made a choice. "Okay, but Diana, this is going to be messy, expensive, ugly. I don't care. Sophie needs her father. That's worth fighting for." For the first time since Vanessa's call, Ethan felt like he could breathe. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone showed up for me when I needed it. I'm returning the favor, and because I care about you, both of you. More than is probably wise after 2 days, but there it is." I care about you too. Then let me help. Let me be part of this fight. Okay. Thank you, Diana. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we win. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old books. Catherine Sullivan kept her practice in a converted brownstone on Capitol Hill, 3 floors of polished wood and certificates proclaiming 2 decades of family law experience. Ethan sat across from her mahogany desk, Diana beside him, while Kate reviewed the documents Vanessa's attorney had filed. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Kate looked up, her red hair catching afternoon light through tall windows. Mr. Calloway, I'll be honest. Your ex-wife has advantages. Ethan's jaw tightened. What kind? Financial, primarily. James Whitmore earns $350,000 annually. Your income is $85,000. They own a 5-bedroom house. You rent a 2-bedroom apartment. Diana's hand found Ethan's under the table. He gripped it hard enough that his knuckles went white. Kate continued. Courts prioritize stability. On paper, Vanessa can provide private school enrichment activities, a stay-at-home parent. Denver's district ranks higher than Seattle's. The judge will see those factors, but Sophie's stable here. With me. I know. And that matters. But we need to build a case proving Seattle with you serves Sophie's best interests more than Denver with them. How? Documentation. Every school event you've attended, every medical appointment, we show a pattern of primary caregiving spanning years. Kate pulled out a legal pad. I'll need emails from Sophie's school medical records, after school program attendance. Character witnesses, teachers, neighbors, co-workers, friends, parents. Anyone who can speak to your involvement. The cost, Diana's voice was measured. $5,000 retainer today. Could run $20,000 to $30,000 depending on how hard Vanessa fights. Kate's expression softened. I know that's significant. But this is your daughter. Ethan thought about Sophie's college fund, $12,000 accumulated over 7 years. Half gone in one signature. When do you need the retainer? Today would be ideal. Vanessa filed 2 weeks before informing you she has a head start. We need to move fast. Ethan pulled out his checkbook, hands shaking as he wrote $5,000. The paper felt heavier than it should. Kate took the check with sympathy in her eyes. I'll file our response by end of week. Start gathering documentation, everything you can find. They left into Seattle's gray January afternoon. Rain had replaced snow, turning streets into rivers of slush. Diana walked close enough that their shoulders touched. Her voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. We need a system, a way to organize evidence. Ethan stopped walking. Diana, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Her tone left no room for argument. This is what I'm good at. Let me help. They went to Diana's house. She opened her laptop at the kitchen island, pulled up Excel, and within minutes had created a framework that took Ethan's breath away. Color-coded columns for school events, medical appointments, daily care, extracurriculars. Date fields, location fields, witness fields. Conditional formatting, highlighting patterns. A timeline visualization showing 3 years of Ethan's presence at a glance. This is incredible. I build data systems for hospitals. This is just organizing information to tell a story. She glanced at him. The story we're telling is that you're not just present, you're essential. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching Diana work with fluid efficiency. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, creating formulas and pivot tables. His phone buzzed. Frank Mitchell. Heard about Vanessa's Denver plans. Whatever you need, brother. Covering your shifts this week if you need time. Ethan typed back, thanks. Felt something loosen fractionally. Diana looked up. We need confirmation from Sophie's after-school program. Records showing you picked her up on time every day. Ethan pulled out his phone, dialed Greenwood Elementary. Within 15 minutes, he had a promise of attendance records via email by end of business. Diana was already setting up an import script to parse the data automatically. You're amazing at this. I'm angry. Diana didn't look up. Anger makes me efficient. You're angry Vanessa's trying to take your daughter 800 miles away because it's convenient for her fiancé's career. Of course I'm angry. She glanced at Ethan, something fierce in her expression. Sophie deserves better. You deserve better. They worked until Sophie's school let out, then Ethan had to leave to pick her up. Diana walked him to the door, caught his hand. We're going to win this. You can't know that. No, but I can believe it, and I can work like hell to make it true. Ethan kissed her, brief, grateful, full of things he didn't have words for. Then he drove to Greenwood Elementary, where Sophie waited by the flagpole with a drawing of Europa's ice shell she'd made during art class. The next morning, Thursday, Ethan's phone rang during his commute. Principal Morrison's voice carried careful neutrality. Mr. Calloway, Sophie's been involved in an incident. She's in the nurse's office. You need to come get her. Is she hurt? She has a split lip. The other child has a bloody nose. We'll discuss details when you arrive. He called Diana from the parking lot, voice shaking. Something happened at school. Can you come? I'm leaving now. The school hallways smelled like floor wax and anxiety. Principal Morrison met him outside the nurse's office. What happened? Sophie got into a physical altercation with Tyler Bennett during lunch. According to witnesses, Tyler said something that upset Sophie considerably. She asked him to stop 3 times. When he didn't, she punched him. Ethan felt the ground tilt. Sophie had punched another kid. The nurse's office was small and overly bright. Sophie sat on the examination table holding an ice pack to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. When she saw Ethan, she started crying harder. Daddy, I'm so sorry. He crossed to her in 3 strides, wrapped her in his arms. Hey, you're okay. Tell me what happened. Sophie's voice came muffled against his shoulder. Tyler said Mommy's leaving because of me, that I wasn't a good enough daughter, that she's moving to Denver to get away from me. Every muscle in Ethan's body locked. The rage was cold and clarifying. And you asked him to stop 3 times like you taught me. But he kept saying it and everyone was listening and laughing and I just got so mad. Ethan pulled back to look at her face. The split lip was minor, but the devastation in her eyes cut deeper. You did the right thing asking him to stop. The hitting part we'll talk about better ways, but sweetheart, listen. Mommy's choices have nothing to do with you not being good enough. Sophie nodded, but her eyes said she didn't believe it. Diana appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Sophie's gaze found her immediately. Diana, Tyler said, Mommy doesn't want me anymore. Diana moved to the examination table, sat beside Sophie with careful deliberation. Sweetheart, that's not true. Your mom loves you, but sometimes adults make choices about their own lives that have nothing to do with their children. But why would she want to move far away if she loves me? The question hung in antiseptic air. Diana chose her words carefully. Because your mom is thinking about what she wants for herself. That's not wrong. Adults are allowed to want things. But it doesn't mean she doesn't love you. It means she's making a choice and you get caught in the middle. Which isn't fair. Sophie clung to Diana's hand. You're not going to leave, right? Diana's voice was firm. I'm not leaving. I'm right here. Principal Morrison knocked, entered with careful authority. Mr. Calloway, I'm sorry, but we have zero-tolerance policy on violence. Sophie's suspended 3 days, starting when tomorrow through Tuesday. She can return Wednesday. Ethan nodded, already calculating. He'd need PTO, arrange his schedule around Sophie. Diana stood. Is Tyler being disciplined for the bullying? Morrison's expression flickered. We're addressing that separately. Good. Because telling a 7-year-old her mother is abandoning her, that's not teasing. That's cruelty. The drive home was quiet. Sophie sat in the back seat, staring out the window, looking smaller than Ethan had ever seen her. Diana followed in her own car. At home, Diana made grilled cheese while Ethan helped Sophie change into comfortable clothes. When they reconvened in the living room, Diana produced hot chocolate. Can Diana stay? Sophie's voice was small. As long as you both want me here. They watched nature documentaries, Sophie gradually relaxing against Diana's side. By evening, she'd fallen asleep exhausted. Ethan carried her to bed, tucked her in. Returned to find Diana cleaning up the kitchen. He stopped in the doorway, watching her rinse dishes and load them into his ancient dishwasher. Diana turned, saw his expression. What, this is going to get worse. Vanessa's lawyer will use this. Sophie suspended for fighting. They'll say I can't control her, then we show them why she acted out. We get the other kids who witnessed it to tell the truth. Diana dried her hands, crossed to where Ethan stood. Vanessa filed this petition knowing it would devastate Sophie. She put her own desires first. That's what the court needs to see. Why are you doing this? This isn't your fight. Diana's jaw set. Maybe it wasn't 2 weeks ago. But it is now, because I care about Sophie and I care about you. And I'm not walking away when things get hard. I'm scared. The admission felt like failure. I'm terrified I'm going to lose her. Diana stepped closer. Listen to me. Sophie doesn't need everything. She needs you. She needs the father who makes star-shaped pancakes and learns about Europa's oceans and shows up when she's hurting. She held him while he shook with fear he'd been holding at bay. When he finally pulled back, Diana's eyes were wet. I need to tell you something. My company's in trouble. Ethan felt the ground shift. What kind? A competitor made an offer to buy us out. Hostile takeover. My board is considering it. I have an emergency meeting Monday. The timing hit him like a blow. Monday, 3 days from now. Diana, you should focus on that. I can't ask you to sacrifice. You're not asking. I'm choosing. Diana's expression was fierce. I can fight for my company and fight for you. I'm not choosing one or the other, but if you lose the company, then I lose it. But I won't lose myself. Diana's voice dropped. For 8 years, I buried myself in work, 80-hour weeks, no life outside. Then I met you and Sophie. I remembered what it feels like to be part of something real. I'm not giving that up. You're either brave or insane, probably both. Diana's smile was shaky, but one day at a time. Today we deal with Sophie, tomorrow we gather evidence, Monday I save my company. Tuesday we keep building your case. They spent the next 3 days in controlled chaos. Diana organized it with systematic efficiency. She created schedules, timelines, task lists. She broke impossible problems into manageable pieces. Friday, while Ethan stayed home with Sophie, Diana went to Greenwood Elementary and convinced Mrs. Patterson to write a support letter. She tracked down 3 parents whose children had witnessed Tyler's bullying and got them to provide statements. Saturday, Ethan took Sophie to the library while Diana worked on her company defense. They met for dinner at Ethan's apartment where Diana helped Sophie with the science project. She'd missed a Jupiter moon system model requiring precise measurements. Sophie was subdued, still processing the fight. But she lit up when Diana suggested using blue LED lights inside Europa to represent the subsurface ocean. The 3 of them spent hours in Ethan's living room working together, and it felt like the shape of what they could build if everything didn't fall apart. Sunday morning, Diana looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking from too much coffee. Her board presentation was polished, a point-by-point demolition of why the takeover undervalued the company. But her attention kept fragmenting. She'd work on market projections, then pivot to updating Ethan's evidence spreadsheet. Ethan found her in his kitchen at 2 a.m., laptop open, surrounded by papers. You need to sleep. Can't. Board meetings in 18 hours. Diana, you're running on fumes. She looked up, and for the first time, the mask cracked completely. I don't know how to stop. If I stop, I think about how much could go wrong. He moved around the island, took the laptop, closed it gently. Come here. Diana let him pull her into his arms. She was trembling. I can't watch you destroy yourself for my battle. I'm not destroying myself. You're exhausted. You've barely slept in 5 days. You're trying to save your company and fight my custody case, and it's too much. Diana pulled back enough to meet his eyes. What if I can't do it all? Then you choose the company. Don't! Diana's voice went sharp. Don't tell me what I should sacrifice. I chose this. I chose you and Sophie, and I'm not backing down, one day at a time. Tomorrow you save your company. I'll handle custody prep. We divide and conquer. Diana sagged against him. Okay. He took her to his bedroom. Sophie was asleep in her own room. They fell asleep fully clothed on top of the covers. Diana's head on Ethan's chest, both too tired for anything beyond the comfort of not being alone. Monday morning came early. Diana woke before dawn, showered, put on spare clothes she'd started keeping at his apartment. By 7, she was reviewing her presentation while Ethan made coffee and Sophie ate cereal. You're going to be amazing. Ethan handed Diana a travel mug. Diana kissed him, quick and nervous, then Sophie. She left in a blur of determination. Ethan spent Monday gathering final documentation. Medical records showing he'd been present at every appointment. Emails confirming his attendance at parent-teacher conferences. A spreadsheet tracking 3 years of custody compliance, every pickup, every drop-off documented with timestamps. Frank called around noon. Boss approved you working from home this week. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Thanks, brother. Just win. Keep that girl with her dad where she belongs. Diana texted at 3 p.m. Board voted to stay independent. We won. Ethan sagged with relief. That's incredible. 3 hours later, she was at his door, still in her business suit, looking like she'd fought a war and survived. Ethan pulled her inside, held her while she shook. Sophie emerged, took one look at Diana, and announced that Diana needed hot chocolate and a blanket. The 3 of them ended up on the couch, Sophie between them, watching a Mars documentary while Diana slowly relaxed. Around 8, Sophie asked the question, building all day. Are you and Diana dating now? Like for real? Ethan and Diana exchanged glances. Yes. Ethan's voice was steady. We're together. Is that okay? Sophie considered with 7-year-old gravity. Will Diana be here more? Not living here yet. We're taking things slow. But yes, she'll be around more. Good. Sophie snuggled deeper. I like Diana, and you're happier when she's here, Daddy. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan and Diana sat in his kitchen reviewing Kate's latest email. The lawyer had compiled everything into a comprehensive brief, making Ethan look like Father of the Year. This is solid. Diana scrolled through the document. So did you. Ethan gestured at the evidence spreadsheet. None of this would exist without your help. Diana closed her laptop, turned to face him. Ethan, I need you to know something. These past 2 weeks helping with Sophie building the case, it's the most alive I've felt in 8 years. She paused. My ex-husband told me I was incomplete, and I believed him. I spent 8 years believing I was fundamentally broken. Her voice dropped. But then you showed up, you and Sophie, and I'm not broken. I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. You're more than enough. I love you. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. I know it's only been 2 weeks and that's insane, but I love you. Diana's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. And yes, it's insane. And I don't care because it's also true. They kissed in Ethan's kitchen, 2 broken people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Kate scheduled depositions, gathered testimony, refined arguments. Vanessa's lawyer filed aggressive motions painting Ethan as financially unstable, emotionally volatile. Frank and David from work testified about Ethan's reliability, his dedication to Sophie. Mrs. Patterson wrote a letter that brought Kate to tears, a detailed account of every way Ethan had been the model parent. Eleanor Briggs, the elderly neighbor, wrote about hearing laughter from their apartment every evening, about watching father and daughter walk to the library every Saturday morning. Diana organized everything, created presentation boards showing the timeline of Ethan's involvement, compiled videos of their daily routines. She worked with Kate to build a narrative that was impossible to ignore. 2 days before the trial, Ethan came home to find Diana at his kitchen table, laptop open, face pale. What happened? Diana's voice was carefully controlled. Vanessa's lawyer filed an amended motion. They're bringing up Sophie's suspension, claiming it proves you're unable to provide appropriate discipline. That's bullshit, I know, but they're twisting it. Ethan sat down hard. They're going to use my daughter's pain against me. Diana reached across the table, took his hand. We fight back. We show why Sophie lashed out. What if it's not enough? What if the judge decides James's salary matters more? Then you remind the judge that Sophie doesn't want to go, that a 7-year-old's voice matters. Ethan looked at Diana, at her exhausted determination, and felt something inside him crack. I can't do this to you anymore. Diana went very still. What, this? You've spent 2 weeks fighting my ex-wife. You almost lost your company, and now I'm asking you to keep sacrificing. Stop. Diana's voice cut sharp. Stop right there. I can't watch you destroy yourself. It's not just yours anymore. Diana stood, anger flashing. I chose this. I chose you and Sophie. And now when things are hardest, you're trying to push me away. I'm trying to be realistic. That's exactly what you're saying. You're doing what Vanessa did, looking at me and deciding I deserve better. Pushing me away for my own good. The accusation hit Ethan like a blow. That's not fair, isn't it? You've spent 3 years believing you weren't enough. And now you're so convinced that you're trying to make me leave before I figure it out myself. She was right. He was sabotaging this. Diana stepped closer, tears tracking down her face. I love you. I love Sophie. And I'm not leaving just because things are hard. So you need to decide, do you trust me enough to let me stay? The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I'm terrified. Not just of losing Sophie, of losing you. Then we faced that terror together. Diana took his face in her hands. That's what love means. Not running when things get hard. Staying. Something in Ethan shattered the careful walls he'd built, the protective distance. Diana was right. He'd been pushing her away to avoid the pain of her inevitable departure, but she wasn't leaving. I'm sorry. His voice broke. I didn't mean, I know. Diana's thumbs wiped at tears. But you need to stop trying to be a martyr. Let me choose you. Let me fight without you second-guessing. Okay. He pulled her into his arms, held her like she might disappear. Okay. I trust you. They stood in his kitchen, 2 people learning that trusting someone meant letting them see your worst fears and staying anyway. The next day, Kate called. Trial set for Monday morning. 9 a.m. King County Courthouse, Judge Lisa Morrison presiding. We have a solid case. Kate's voice was professionally optimistic. But I want you prepared. Vanessa's lawyer is aggressive. She'll attack your finances, your work schedule, the suspension. Can she win? Kate paused just long enough to make Ethan's stomach drop. It's possible. Judges are unpredictable. We've built the best case we can. Now we hope it's enough. After Kate hung up, Ethan sat on his couch, staring at nothing. Diana emerged from his bedroom, took one look, and sat beside him. Tell me, trial's Monday. Kate says we might lose. Then we better not lose. Diana pulled out her phone, started typing. I'm clearing my schedule. I'll be there every minute. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Diana's expression was resolute. So I'm going to sit in that courtroom looking like I believe you're going to win. Because I do. Sunday was strange and quiet. Ethan spent it with Sophie, trying to be present while his mind spun worst-case scenarios. They made star-shaped pancakes. They worked on her Jupiter model. They read 3 chapters of their book. Sophie sensed his anxiety anyway. Are you worried about tomorrow, Daddy? A little. But I'm ready. I've been preparing with Kate and Diana. What happens if the judge says I have to move to Denver? The question he'd been dreading. Ethan pulled Sophie into his lap. Then we appeal. We keep fighting. But Sophie, I need you to know, no matter what happens, I love you. I will always be your father. Geography doesn't change that. Sophie nodded against his chest, and Ethan prayed that geography would never have to test that promise. That night, Diana stayed over again. They lay side by side in Ethan's bed, holding hands in the dark, both too anxious for real rest. Around 2 a.m., Diana's voice cut through silence. "Ethan. Yeah. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. You're not alone anymore." He turned to look at her in the dark. "I love you. I love you too. Now try to sleep. You need to be sharp." They didn't sleep much, but they lay there together until dawn broke over Seattle, two people facing the biggest fight of their lives with nothing more than hope and each other. The courthouse steps were gray granite, worn smooth by decades of footsteps. Ethan climbed them Monday morning with Diana's hand in his, Kate Sullivan ahead carrying a briefcase that held 3 years of evidence. The building loomed against Seattle's clouded sky. King County Family Court occupied the 3rd floor. The hallway smelled like floor polish and anxiety. Other families waited on benches, parents and children, lawyers checking watches, the quiet desperation of people whose lives were about to be decided by strangers. Vanessa stood near the courtroom doors with James and her attorney, Samantha Cross. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent. Their eyes met across the hallway. Vanessa looked away first. Kate checked her watch. 5 minutes. They moved to a quiet corner. Kate's voice dropped low. "Judge Morrison has a reputation for being fair but pragmatic. Be honest, emotional when appropriate, but not volatile. Answer directly. Don't get defensive." Ethan nodded, throat too tight for words. Diana squeezed his hand. The bailiff opened the doors. Time compressed and expanded suddenly. They were inside, settling into wooden chairs that creaked, facing Judge Lisa Morrison. Early 60s gray hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose, expression giving nothing away. The courtroom was smaller than expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, the Washington state seal behind the bench. Diana sat in the gallery directly behind Ethan, close enough that he could feel her presence. Judge Morrison looked up from paperwork. "We're here regarding the petition filed by Vanessa Calloway to relocate to Denver, Colorado with the minor child Sophie Calloway." "Counselors ready to proceed," Kate stood. "Ready, Your Honor." Samantha Cross rose. "Ready, Your Honor." "Ms. Cross, your opening statement." Samantha moved to center commanding space. "Your Honor, this case is about opportunity. Vanessa Calloway and James Whitmore are offering Sophie unprecedented advantage. Denver's Willow Creek Academy ranks top 10 nationally with 8-to-1 student-teacher ratio. Cherry Creek neighborhood provides safety enrichment programs unavailable in Sophie's current situation. She gestured at a chart showing comparative statistics. Mr. Whitmore earns $350,000 annually. Ms. Calloway earns $95,000. Combined, they can provide private tutors, summer camps, international travel, college preparation from an early age. Samantha paused. Mr. Calloway earns $85,000. He rents a 2-bedroom apartment, works full-time, meaning Sophie spends significant hours in institutional care. This isn't about Mr. Calloway being a bad father. This is about which parent can offer Sophie the best possible future. Kate's opening was shorter, more pointed. "Your Honor, Ms. Cross is correct about one thing. This is about Sophie's future. But Sophie already has a future here. She has a school where she's thriving, friends since kindergarten, a father who hasn't missed a single conference in 3 years, a community where she's rooted." Kate presented her timeline, the visualization Diana had built. Vanessa Calloway is asking to uproot Sophie not because Sophie needs it, but because it's convenient for Ms. Calloway's new life. Sophie doesn't want to move. She's stated this repeatedly. At 7 years old, her voice matters. Money doesn't buy presents. Kate's tone hardened. Large houses don't replace daily conversations. Private schools don't substitute for a father who knows his daughter's fears and dreams. Sophie needs her father, and he's here. Judge Morrison made notes. "Call your first witness, Ms. Cross." Vanessa took the stand, swore the oath, settled into the chair with nervous grace. Samantha led her through a careful narrative. Loving mother wanting the best painful decision to pursue opportunities, detailed plans for maintaining Sophie's relationship with Ethan. Why do you believe Denver serves Sophie's best interest? Vanessa's voice was steady. The education opportunities are unparalleled. James and I can provide stability, a two-parent household where I can reduce work hours, be present when Sophie comes home. We've enrolled her in junior astronomy at Denver Museum, recognizing her interests. This isn't about taking Sophie from her father. It's about giving her advantages. Kate's cross-examination was surgical. Ms. Calloway, when did you inform Mr. Calloway about Denver? About 3 weeks ago, but you filed this petition 5 weeks ago, 2 weeks before informing him. Why? I wanted to ensure it was legally viable. You wanted legal advantage. Filed first, informed second, objection. Samantha stood. Argumentative. Sustained. Rephrase Ms. Sullivan. Ms. Sullivan. Calloway, in the past 3 years, what percentage of parent-teacher conferences have you attended? Vanessa's composure cracked. I work full-time, so records show 40%. Mr. Calloway, 100%. Every single conference. Correct, yes, but Sophie's medical appointments. Who typically takes her? We share, records show 15 appointments in 3 years. Mr. Calloway attended 13. You attended 2. Is that sharing equally? My job has demanding hours, as does Mr. Calloway's. Yet he prioritizes appointments. Has Sophie expressed desire to move to Denver? She's 7. Children don't understand. Has she expressed a desire, yes or no? Vanessa's jaw tightened. No. She said she wants to stay with her father. Multiple times, yes. How many, I don't count. The psychologist's report indicates 7 times during a 1-hour evaluation. 7 times. And you're proceeding despite knowing your daughter doesn't want to go, I believe, once she adjusts. So you're prioritizing what you believe over what Sophie explicitly stated. Objection sustained. Move on. Kate returned to her table. No further questions. Ethan was called next. The walk to the witness stand felt endless. He placed his hand on the Bible, swore truth, sat in the chair still warm from Vanessa. Kate led him through his daily routine: morning pancakes, school drop-off, evening homework, bedtime stories. Ethan's voice steadied as he talked about Sophie. Tell the court about your work schedule. I work 8 to 5, pick Sophie up at 5 sharp, never late. Then home, dinner together, homework, projects, reading. After she's asleep around 8:30, I work from home until midnight. Security patches, system monitoring. That's a 16-hour workday. Fatherhood and employment both require commitment. I manage both because they're equally important. Kate pulled up the timeline. Mr. Calloway walked the court through your involvement. Ethan described 3 years of conferences, volunteer field trips, every science project. When Sophie struggled with fractions, I hired a tutor. Cost $200 I didn't have, but Sophie needed help. When she wanted to learn coding, I taught her Python. When she became obsessed with Europa, I checked out every astronomy book our library had. His voice dropped. I don't have money for private schools. But I show up. Every day. I know Sophie's best friend is Zoe Miller. I know she's afraid of the dark but too proud to admit it, so I leave the bathroom light on. I know her favorite book is A Wrinkle in Time. I know she wants to be an astronaut, and I believe she'll be brilliant because I see her work ethic every single day. Tell the court about the school suspension. Ethan felt Diana's presence drawing strength. Sophie was bullied. Tyler Bennett told her in front of witnesses that her mother was leaving because Sophie wasn't a good enough daughter. That Vanessa was moving to Denver to get away from Sophie. The courtroom went very quiet. Sophie asked Tyler to stop 3 times, just like I taught her. When he didn't stop when everyone was laughing, Sophie defended herself physically. Which was wrong. We've discussed better ways. But, Your Honor. Ethan's voice cracked. The worst thing you can tell a 7-year-old is that her parent is abandoning her because she's not good enough. Sophie thinks this move is her fault. She believes she failed, and that's destroying her. What would losing custody mean? The question gutted him. Ethan stared at his hands. I'd miss everything that matters. First days of school when she's nervous. Science fairs where we build projects together. Daily conversations about Saturn's rings or black holes. Bedtime when she asks about life and love and why people hurt each other. He looked up at Judge Morrison. I wouldn't be the person she comes home to. I'd be the person she visits. Summer dad, Christmas dad, not her real father, just someone she sees occasionally. I'd lose my daughter, not on paper, but in every way that actually matters. Samantha's cross-examination was brutal. She hammered on finance's modest income, rented apartment, inability to provide enrichment. She questioned work hours, suggested Sophie spent too much time in institutional care. She brought up the suspension, framing it as poor discipline. But Ethan had spent 3 years learning to absorb criticism. He answered calmly, honestly. You earn $85,000. Mr. Whitmore earns 4 times that. How can you compete? I don't compete with money. I compete with presence. I show up every single day. James can buy her a telescope, but I'm the one who learns about Jupiter's moons so we can talk about what she sees. Money opens doors, but it doesn't replace a father who's there when those doors open. Your apartment is 800 square feet. Their house is 3,500. Doesn't Sophie deserve more space? Sophie deserves her father. She deserves stability. A bigger house doesn't fix the trauma of being uprooted from everything familiar. Character witnesses followed. Mrs. Patterson described Ethan as the model parent. I've taught 23 years. I've never seen a father more present. Sophie talks about him constantly. He's her hero. Eleanor Briggs testified about 40 years in the same building. I hear laughter from their apartment every evening. I see them walking to library every Saturday. Last month, Ethan was up all night helping Sophie build a volcano. They were exhausted and covered in paint, but so happy. That's parenting. Frank Mitchell brought gruff authenticity. I've worked with Ethan 7 years. He's the best IT specialist I've trained. Could make 20 to 30,000 more elsewhere. He stays because his schedule works for Sophie. Every day at 4:55, Ethan's packing up. Never late, never excuses. That's work ethic. That's integrity. Dr. Amanda Reeves, the court psychologist, delivered devastating testimony. I interviewed Sophie 3 weeks ago. She expressed clear, consistent preference to remain in Seattle. Quote, Daddy's my favorite person in the whole world. I don't want to leave him. She stated this 7 times during our hour. What's your assessment? Dr. Reeves looked at Judge Morrison. Uprooting a 7-year-old from her primary attachment figure, especially when that child explicitly opposes the move, risks significant psychological harm. Children. Sophie's age needs stability, familiar environments, consistent caregiving. Disrupting that for adult convenience rather than child necessity can cause lasting trauma. In my professional opinion, Sophie's best interest is remaining with her primary caregiver. That's unequivocally Mr. Calloway. The lunch recess felt surreal. Ethan, Diana, and Kate huddled in a conference room eating sandwiches no one tasted. You're doing incredibly well. Kate's voice carried cautious optimism. The testimony is strong. We have momentum. But can we win? Kate met his eyes honestly. Judge Morrison is hard to read, but yes, I believe we can. Closing arguments began at 2:30. Samantha painted opportunity squandered, a mother trying to provide advantages while a father clung to convenience. Mr. Calloway is a good father, but good fathers want what's best even when it requires sacrifice. Sophie deserves the education and stability Denver offers. Don't prioritize one parent's preference over a child's future. Kate's closing was simple and devastating. Your Honor, Ms. Cross said this isn't about one parent being bad. She's right. This is about what Sophie needs. And Sophie has told us 7 times to Dr. Reeves, countless times to Mr. Calloway what she needs. She needs to stay home. She needs her father. She needs the life they've built. Kate gestured at the evidence. 3 years of documentation shows Ethan Calloway isn't just present, he's foundational. Every school event, every appointment, every moment that mattered. Vanessa filed this petition 2 weeks before informing him. She prioritized legal advantage over cooperation. She's pursuing this despite her daughter's explicit opposition. That's not putting Sophie first. Money doesn't buy presents. Kate's voice rang clear. Houses don't replace daily conversations. Private schools don't substitute for a father who knows his daughter's fears and dreams. James Whitmore can provide financial advantages, but he can't provide what Ethan gives Sophie every day, a father who shows up. That's not nothing. That's everything. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes. This is not an easy decision. Both parents clearly love Sophie. But my job isn't making adults happy, it's determining what serves a child's best interest. I'll take this under advisement and issue a written ruling within 7 days. Court adjourned. The gavel's crack felt final. Ethan stood on shaking legs, Diana immediately beside him. Kate gathered papers while Samantha and Vanessa conferred. Vanessa approached as they were leaving. James stayed back. Her voice was quiet. Ethan, can we talk? Not now. Ethan's exhaustion was bone deep. I can't do this. Please, just 2 minutes. Diana touched his arm. I'll wait in the hall. She left with Kate. Vanessa stood 3 feet away, close enough that Ethan could smell her familiar perfume. I didn't know Tyler said those things to Sophie. Her voice broke. I swear I didn't know she thought the move was her fault. You filed for relocation before telling me. You put legal strategy ahead of co-parenting. I was scared you'd fight it. Of course I'm fighting it. She's my daughter. She's mine too. Vanessa's eyes filled. I know I haven't been as present as you. I know my career took priority. But I love Sophie. I'm not trying to hurt her. Then don't take her 800 miles away. Don't force her to choose. Don't uproot her because James got a promotion. It's not just the promotion. It's building a future. You left me because I couldn't give you the future you wanted. Fine, but Sophie isn't part of your future with James. She's her own person with her own needs. Right now she needs to stay here. Vanessa wiped at tears. What if the judge rules in my favor, then I appeal? Sophie will know I never stopped fighting. The hallway was emptying. Ethan walked away from his ex-wife feeling hollowed out and somehow lighter. Diana and Kate waited by the elevators. Now we wait. Kate's voice was professionally neutral. The ruling could come any time in the next week. Ethan laughed bitter. Sure, I'll just go about my normal life while a judge decides if I lose my daughter. Kate's expression softened. I know this is excruciating, but you did everything right. Now we trust the process. The cab pulled away. Diana and Ethan stood in the rain, neither moving toward their cars. Let's go home. Your place or mine, ours. Diana's hand found his. Let's just go somewhere we can be together. They drove separately to Diana's house. Inside, Diana made tea, neither drank, while Ethan sat at her kitchen island, staring at nothing. Talk to me. I keep replaying it. Everything I said. What if the judge thinks James's money matters more? What if 7 days from now I get a ruling that destroys everything, then we deal with it? Appeal. Diana moved around the island, wrapped arms around him from behind. But Ethan, you were brilliant. You showed Judge Morrison who you are. That has to matter. But what if it doesn't? Then we keep fighting until it does. But right now, tonight, we take care of each other. They fell asleep on her couch, exhausted. Ethan woke at 2 a.m. to find Diana staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep. Too many thoughts. She turned to face him. I keep thinking about my divorce. How I let my ex convince me I was incomplete. How I spent 8 years believing I'd missed my chance. Her voice dropped. And then I met you and Sophie, and I realized I wasn't incomplete, I was just with the wrong person. The right family doesn't require you to be anything except yourself. You're not incomplete. You never were. Neither are you. Diana's hand found his. Whatever Judge Morrison decides, you're an extraordinary father. Don't let one ruling make you forget. They lay there until dawn, helping each other stay whole through the hardest waiting. Tuesday crawled past. Wednesday was worse. Thursday morning, Ethan went through motions at work, barely functional, jumping every time his phone buzzed. Kate texted, no ruling yet. These things take time. Friday afternoon, his phone rang. Vanessa. Ethan almost sent it to voicemail. But something made him answer. Her voice sounded different, smaller, uncertain. Ethan, I need to tell you something before the ruling comes. What James and I have been talking for days. And we've decided. She paused so long, Ethan thought the connection dropped. We're not moving to Denver. The words didn't compute. What James is turning down the position. We're staying in Seattle. Why? Vanessa's voice cracked. Because I watched you in that courtroom. I saw how much you love her. Dr. Reeves's testimony about attachment figures, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And James? He agrees. No promotion is worth traumatizing a 7-year-old. We can build our life here, so the ruling doesn't matter, it matters. Because I want the judge to know you won, that you were right. I'm withdrawing the petition Monday before she issues her decision. But Ethan, I'm sorry for everything, for making you feel not enough during our marriage, for filing this petition, for not seeing what an incredible father you are. Ethan sat down hard. I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me be a better mother going forward. Say we can co-parent without lawyers. Say Sophie can have both of us without choosing. Yeah. His voice was hoarse. We can do that. After hanging up, Ethan sat motionless for 5 minutes. Then he called Kate, who whooped so loudly he had to hold the phone away. He called Diana, who started crying immediately. He picked up Sophie early, drove her to Diana's house, and told them both together. Sophie's reaction was pure 7-year-old logic. So I get to stay with you and still see Mommy. That's perfect. Can we have pancakes to celebrate? They made pancakes at 4 in the afternoon, star-shaped because traditions mattered, and ate them with syrup and laughter and relief that felt almost painful. Monday morning, Kate called with official update. Vanessa withdrew as promised, but Judge Morrison issued her ruling anyway. Kate read it, voice thick. The judge ruled that even if Vanessa hadn't withdrawn, the petition would have been denied. She wrote that Ethan demonstrated primary caregiving, that Sophie's wishes carried significant weight, that money couldn't substitute for presence. There's a line at the end. This court recognizes economic disparity, but a father's worth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in time, presence, and devotion. By that measure, Ethan Calloway is the richest man in this courtroom. Ethan hung up and sat in his kitchen, his modest 800-square-foot apartment that apparently held more value than any Denver mansion. Diana found him there, reading the ruling, tears streaming. We won, his voice was wondering. Sophie gets to stay, she gets to keep her father. That's all she ever wanted. 3 months later, spring transformed Seattle. Ethan and Diana found a house in Greenwood, 3 bedrooms, walking distance to Sophie's school. A backyard big enough for the telescope. The mortgage stretched Ethan's budget, but Diana contributed equally. Moving day was chaos. Frank and David showed up with trucks and complaints about Ethan's book collection. Sophie directed traffic from the porch, clipboard in hand, taking her supervisor role with adorable seriousness. Diana's boxes arrived mixed with Ethan's. Kitchen equipment, furniture that somehow fit perfectly, 2 separate lives becoming one household. That first night, they ate pizza on the floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes, while Sophie described her vision walls painted like space, glow-in-the-dark stars, a reading nook for astronomy books. Can Diana help me paint? Of course. This is her house, too. Our house. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Good. Because we're a family now. Co-parenting with Vanessa improved. She kept Sophie 1 weekend monthly, and alternating holidays showed up for school events, maintained polite distance. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional. One Saturday in May, Vanessa dropped Sophie off and lingered. "The house looks good, thanks." Diana picked the paint colors. "She's good for you. Better than I was. You deserve that." He watched his ex-wife walk back to James's BMW, felt nothing but closure. Summer brought long evenings in their backyard, Diana teaching Sophie to plant tomatoes while Ethan grilled. Frank stopped by with beer and advice. David and his wife came for barbecues. Eleanor Briggs visited, approved of the house. In July, Sophie's 8th birthday party filled the backyard with friends from school. Zoe Miller was there and Tyler Bennett, who'd apologized profusely and now sometimes came over for science projects. Mrs. Patterson, Kate Sullivan, everyone who'd fought for Sophie's right to stay home. Diana organized games with characteristic efficiency, but Ethan caught her watching Sophie blow out candles with an expression he'd seen before. Later that night, after guests left and Sophie crashed from sugar, Ethan found Diana cleaning up. "Hey," he took the garbage bag from her. "Talk to me." Today was perfect. Diana's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Watching Sophie with her friends, I keep thinking about my ex-husband, how he said I was incomplete." Her voice broke. "But I have Sophie now, not biologically, but in every way that matters. She calls me by name but introduces me as her other mom, and I realized my ex was wrong. I'm not incomplete. I was just meant for a different kind of family." "You're not her other mom." Ethan pulled Diana close. "You're her mom. Full stop. Biology doesn't make family, love makes family." Diana cried into his shoulder, years of pain finally releasing. "I love her so much. Both of you." In August, on a Saturday, that felt ordinary. Ethan found Diana making star-shaped pancakes while Sophie set the table and chattered about the upcoming school year. He watched them together and knew with absolute certainty what came next. That afternoon, while Sophie was at Zoe's, Ethan drove to the jewelry store. The ring he chose was simple, a single diamond on white gold, exactly Diana's style. Frank met him for coffee, took one look at the ring box and grinned. "About time. I've only known her 8 months." "When you know, you know. Don't waste time being careful when you've already found what matters." That night, after Sophie was asleep, Ethan and Diana sat on their back porch watching stars. The telescope sat ready for weekend observations. "Diana, my lease is up in 2 months." She turned confused. "What lease? You live here?" "That's the thing." Ethan pulled out the ring box. "I don't want to live here. I want to be here. Officially, permanently, legally. I want Sophie to have 2 parents committed not just to her, but to each other." He opened the box, diamond catching moonlight. "Diana Mercer, will you marry me? Will you be Sophie's official stepmom and my wife and part of this beautiful, messy, perfect thing we've built?" Diana was crying before he finished. "Yes." Her voice was fierce through tears. "Yes to all of it." The ring fit perfectly. They kissed in their backyard while stars watched 2 people who'd been told they were too old, too broken, too late. Proving that love didn't follow anyone's timeline but its own. Sophie found out the next morning and whooped so loudly the neighbors probably heard. "Can I be in the wedding? Like a real important part." "What do you want to be?" Sophie considered. "Junior bride. Because I'm helping you both get married. Junior bride it is." They planned the wedding for September, 8 months after meeting. Morrison's coffee house felt like the only possible location. 30 guests fit among tables pushed to walls. Kate Sullivan, Frank and David, Eleanor Briggs, Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Reeves, everyone who'd fought for Sophie. Judge Lisa Morrison agreed to officiate. The ceremony was simple, no long aisle, no elaborate decorations, just truth spoken where Ethan had first decided to intervene. Judge Morrison's voice carried weight. "Ethan and Diana, you've both been told you missed your chance, that you were too old, too broken, too late. Today you're proving everyone wrong." Ethan's vows were simple. "Diana, 1 year ago I was sitting here thinking my life was over. Then you walked in, and a stranger decided to speak up. That stranger was me, but you're the one who stayed. You fought for my daughter like she was your own. You showed me being enough isn't about money, it's about showing up. I promise to show up for you. Every day. I promise to choose you always. Diana's vows made half the room cry. Ethan, 1 year ago, a stranger saw me at my lowest. Instead of walking away, he sat down. He saw me. You gave me hope. You and Sophie gave me the family I thought I'd never have. I promise to love Sophie fiercely. I promise to love you completely. I promise we're never too old, never too broken, never too late. Not for love, not for family, not for second chances, ring exchange. Sophie helped Ethan slide the band onto Diana's finger. By the power vested in me and by my belief that everyone deserves second chances, I now pronounce you husband and wife. They kissed to applause and tears. The reception was small and perfect. First dance to At Last. Then Ethan, Diana, and Sophie together, all three holding hands. Kate gave a toast about fighting for what matters. Frank spoke gruffly about good men finishing with family. Even Vanessa attended, surprisingly gracious. Sophie made an unplanned speech standing on a chair. I'm 8 now, so I can talk at weddings. Daddy, you're the best dad in the world. Diana, you're the best stepmom. I'm glad you married each other. Now we're family forever. The evening dissolved into laughter and dancing. Around 10, they drove home to the house they'd built together. Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Ethan carried her inside, Diana following with shoes in one hand and bouquet in the other. They tucked Sophie into her space-themed bedroom, both kissing her forehead. We did it. Diana kicked off her remaining shoe. Best decision I ever made. Ethan pulled her close. Well, second best. First was buying you that white rose. That rose started everything. No. Ethan kissed her softly. You started everything. You chose to stay when anyone else would have run. They fell asleep in their bedroom with their daughter down the hall, two people who'd been told they were past their expiration date, proving that love had no timeline except the one you gave it. 1 year after meeting, they returned to Morrison's on Christmas Eve. Same booth, same owner, same snow falling outside. Sophie was 8, still obsessed with space, already planning her NASA space camp application. Ethan ordered hot chocolate for 3. Diana traced patterns in window condensation. Sophie worked on homework she'd insisted on bringing. Remember this night 1 year ago, I was sitting here fixing Mrs. Brennan's register. I remember thinking my life was over, that I'd be alone forever, and I thought you were the saddest, most beautiful person I'd ever seen. Sophie looked up. This is where you met, where Daddy saved you. It's more complicated than that, sweetheart. How Ethan and Diana exchanged glances. We saved each other. Diana pulled out the pressed white rose she still carried. Your dad gave me this when I needed to feel valued. I gave him hope that maybe he wasn't fighting alone. And together you won. Sophie stated it like fact. You kept me with Daddy and you got married, and now we're family. That's exactly right. Sophie returned to homework while Diana and Ethan sat in comfortable silence, watching snowfall. Do you think there's life on other planets? Probably. Universe is huge. Why just thinking about all the things I was told were impossible, that I was too old, too broken, too late, and how wrong everyone was. I was told the same things, that Vanessa leaving proved I wasn't enough. And instead we found each other. Exactly when we needed to. Sophie finished homework, looked up. Can we make this a tradition? Coming here every Christmas Eve, I think that's perfect. Ethan pulled both his daughter and his wife close. Every year, same place, same time. Remembering where we started? They left together as snow fell heavier, Sophie between them holding both parents' hands. Walking home to the house they'd built, the life they'd made, the family they'd chosen. 3 people who'd been told they were too old, too broken, too late. 3 people who'd proved that love doesn't follow anyone's timeline. It just waits for the right people at exactly the right moment. And when it finds them, it transforms everything, not into something perfect, but into something real and messy and worth every fight. Because some stories don't end. They just begin again one day at a time, built from hope and choice and the courage to believe that maybe, just maybe, you're exactly where you're meant to be.